Good morning. The Tana, Reb Meir Baal Hanes, had a custom that every Friday night he would give a drasha, a Torah speech, in the shul. And there was one Friday night that was packed with men, and there was one woman. And he was speaking, teaching, talking about Torah-related topics, and he went longer than usual. And by the time this woman came home on that Friday night, the candles had already been extinguished. They not extinguished, but they went out, and it was dark. Her husband was very upset, and he said, "Where were you?" So she said, "I was listening to a certain Talmud Chacham. He was speaking in the shul. He went longer than usual. I was there listening." He got very angry, and he said, "I promise that you can't come into this house again until you spit in that wise man's eyes." Okay. So he took an oath and chased her out of the house with this threat that unless she goes and spits in his face, he can't come in. Now, the mayor, he heard about this, and he let out a rumor that he's not feeling well. Something's wrong with his eyes, and he needs someone to spit in his eyes 7 times. Now, who's going to spit in the Meir Baal Hanes's eyes 7 times? So he sent a message to tell this woman that here's your way to have your husband get out of his promise and allow you back in the house. She was meanwhile with her parents, and that's what happened. She went, she spit in his eyes, and quasi this was a health issue, a remedy, and then he went home. She went home. So the Talmidim, his students, came to him and said, "What kind of behavior is this? So we should have just tied up this guy to a beam and said, listen, you figure out how to get rid of this promise. There's ways to undo such a promise. To go to rabbis, you have to talk about it, you have to speak out what happened, why you made it, whatever. You were angry or you lost your cool. And then we would be okay. Instead of having this great rabbi, the Meir Baal Hanes, to have a woman spit in his eyes, it's... what's going on here?" So he told them the following. The greatest thing, he said, it's better that you should be mevater, you should forego on your kavod, your honor, your respect, as long as you can bring peace between husband and wife. In English, what he said was, the peace in that home between that couple is more important than my honor. And if the way to get around that she should be allowed back in her house, was through being spit in my eyes, okay, so be it. It's a beautiful story, at least the end of it. And you see a tremendous value and emphasis on getting along, on peace in general. We're talking about this story because in our parsha, Coexisting, we have blessings. Hashem says, if you're going to listen to my mitzvahs, do as I tell you, you'll have many blessings in your life. And some of these blessings really cover the important things: health, money, security, safety. And then it says, "V'nasati shalom ba'aretz," you'll have peace. It'll be peaceful in the land. You'll have peace. And the question is, why is this element here? Once you said that we're secure, which means that we don't have war, that means that we're safe, why do you have to add that component that there's going to be peace? So Rashi explains, Rashi tells us that you may say, I have food, I have drink, etc., meaning we're fine. Im ein shalom ein klum, quoting the Medrash that if there is no peace, there's nothing. You could have all the money in the world. You could have all the food in the world, all the abundance, the best of health. But if there isn't peace, there's nothing. Okay? And therefore, Torah recognizes the importance, the vitality of having peace. And after all these blessings, what's the end? What's the closing? You have to have peace. If there'll be peace, then all these blessings are worth something. Now we find this. Another Medrash tells us that if you look in the Shemona Esrei that we say 3 times a day, we ask for all different types of things. Right? We ask for wisdom, we ask for forgiveness, we ask for livelihood, for parnasa, we ask for health. We ask for Mashiach to come. There's many, many blessings. What's the closing blessing of Shemoneh Esrei? Sim Shalom. Exactly, right? Put peace. Why? Because if you don't have peace at the end of this, then all these prior blessings have very little value.
Why we have so many wars in order to have peace?
Hopefully we can get to peace without having wars. Another example, the Medrash says, Birchas Kohanim. When the Kohanim, when the priests bench the people, what do we end off with? What do they end off with? The Yasem Lecha Shalom will give you peace. There's already blessing, and there's already Shmira, which is protection. There's already Vichuneka. There's so many special blessings here. But the end is peace. Again, because if you don't have that peace, then all the prior blessings have very little value. And the question is, what's so important about this idea of peace? And why is it different than, for example, ahava, love? It seems to be that peace particularly is very valuable and different even than something than love, for example. Okay? We are used to assuming or associating peace with the lack of war. There was a war, there was a battle, and now it's peace. But is there a way to achieve peace without having a war first? Maybe peace has more to it than just the lack of war or the reconciliation after war. There's something more, as we'll see, to this definition of what peace really means. The Orach Chaim HaKadosh asks the question that we have to understand, why is there peace here if there's no war? How does this term even come in? Once we're talking about this, let's digress for a moment. What's the proper way to greet someone in Hebrew? Shalom, or Shalom Aleichem. We don't say, in other languages, there's hi, there's hello, right? We say Shalom. Okay, Shalom Aleichem, and so on. And this is not just a coincidence. There's reasons for this. Okay, the first one to send someone off with Shalom was Yisrael, Moshe Rabbeinu's father-in-law. He told him, Lech l'Shalom, go to peace. He used that term to Moshe Rabbeinu about peace. We do say good evening, good morning, but the real way of greeting someone in Hebrew is Shalom. And the Mishnah tells us in Brachis, Perek Tes, the Mishnah says that they were Mesakein, our sages have instituted that when you meet someone and you want to see how they're doing, say Shalom. Okay? And the Rambam in his Pirush HaMishnayos, the Rambam explains, Maimonides tells us that the reason why our sages chose Shalom, because Shalom is one of the names of Hashem. Okay? It's one of the names that refer to God himself, and therefore we say Shalom, not just, there's many ways to say hello to somebody, right? Good morning, or great morning, or whatever it may be, whatever your choice of words are, but using the term Shalom, it's one of the names of Hashem. The Baer Heitev on Shulchan Aruch, Shabbos, tells us that someone who meets his friend on Shabbos, if you go to visit your friend, what do you say? Shabbat Shalom. Okay, in other languages, in Yiddish, what do we say? A guten Shabbos. Guten is like Shalom. It's not a guter, good Shabbos. It means like a peaceful Shabbos. Guten. Okay. The idea is that this word Shalom and what it represents is very powerful. The blessings without that are basically meaningless. What's this explanation? What's this meaning and the value of particularly Shalom? Now, regarding Shabbos, it's obviously much further than that. We know that the lighting of Shabbos candles is for Shalom Bayis, to bring peace in the home. We say Shalom Aleichem, which is the idea of Shalom. In davening, we say Sukkah Shalom. There is many references to the idea of peace in connection with Shabbos. What's the connection particularly to Shalom with Shabbos? So by understanding that, we'll understand a little bit more in our context as well, the value, the importance of Shalom. There are two angels, Michael and Gavriel, who represent two opposites. Michael is all snow, and Gavriel is all fire. Okay, fire and snow are opposites. You can even use the term water and fire. Okay, now they're standing next to each other, but they're not damaging each other. Usually, one of the two are going to have to overpower. Either the snow is going to extinguish the fire, or the fire will consume the snow. But these malachim are together. The idea of Shalom, which the Medrash tells us when we say Isa Shalom bimreimav, he makes peace on high. What we're really talking about is the peace among these angels, because there's angels as an angel that represents snow. There's an angel that represents fire, and Hashem is making peace in the heavenly worlds that these two opposites could coexist. It's a very big deal. Okay, the idea of Shalom, of peace, is there's a certain unity that happens by allowing the individuality to shine. People make the mistake, and they think that peace means we're going to blend everyone together, we're going to get rid of the differences, right? And everyone's going to be the same, right? You're going to earn the same amount, you're going to behave the same way, you're going to do the same hobbies, you'll have the same activities together, and then we'll have peace. The problem is there's so many differences. That's not peace. Peace is when you recognize the value of each individual and you bring them together as two entities. And they're together whether there's a common denominator or there's a shared goal, but you're not extinguishing or shunning the value and the contribution of each person. On the contrary, peace is when you're able to bring them together. That's what brings proper peace. It's like the beauty of a choir. Okay, you can have a solo, you can have a choir. It's nicer when there's a togetherness. Okay, this is what Chazal tell us happened on Shabbos. Why we say Shabbat Shalom, right? A guten Shabbos. What's the idea? When the world was created, there was big struggles. Light wanted to be fully in charge of time. The darkness wanted to be in control, right? Whether it was heat versus cold, cold versus heat, there was a lot of competition going on. And there was the need to stop that competition, to deal with that competition. There was friction in Ma'aseh Bereshis and creation because there were many opposites. There were many differences. Each part were important for their component in creation. And when Shabbos came, Shalom came, peace came, harmony came about. And this is the idea that Shalom and the importance of Shalom and its connection to Shabbos is because that's when peace was essentially created. You're able to take all the opposites, not get rid of the differences. We didn't tell Michal, sorry, no snow, we're going for fire. We didn't tell Michal Gabriel, sorry, no fire, we're going to do snow because we have to get along. We said you could both exist, you both have these values, we could get along together even though we're opposites. That's the ultimate of type of peace that we're looking for. It's working together. The Yalkut Shimoni has a beautiful story. There was a pious man, the Medrash tells us, who he worked. He was a hired laborer. He didn't make a lot of money. Things were difficult. And one day he's in the field doing his job, and Eliyahu Hanavi appears to him. And Eliyahu Hanavi says that on high it's been decreed because of your kind deeds and the way that you conduct yourself, you're very pious, you're going to get 6 years of abundance. 6 years of wealth, tremendous wealth. When do you want it? Now or towards the end of your life? Okay, so, sometimes a person thinks he won't be able to work then. Who knows what will be? Maybe now they can get by. He said, I have to ask my wife. So he went home and he told his wife, it's amazing. I have good news. We have a decision to make. Are we taking the 6 years of wealth now or taking it later? So she said, listen, let's take it now. Tell him we want it now. And later, we'll deal with later. So he goes back to Eliyahu Hanavi and he says, my wife wants it now. Okay, no problem. They got the money. What happened was one of their kids was digging or cleaning in the field and he found a treasure and they became literally instantly extremely wealthy. Now the wife, it says Isha Ksheda, she was a kosher one, she was a good one, she was a behaving properly. She decided we're going to involve ourselves with a lot of chesed. We're going to do kindness. And she would help people, and she was very hospitable, and she would seek out the poor and give them what they need, and involved in every cause, giving very generously. And she would write down every single day what she did with the money, how much she gave, this cause was helped, that needy person was assisted, and she really, really kept a record. When the 6 years were up, he's in the field again, and Eliyahu Hanavi says, okay, I've come to take back the money. So he says, listen, I gave it to you. I spoke to my wife. I'm going to speak to her first, and then I'll get back to you. Goes back home. He says, 6 years are up. I met Eliyahu Hanavi. So the Medrash tells us that she said, tell him as follows. If you have someone else that could deal with this pikadon, that could deal with this deposit better than us, by all means, take all the money. But this is what we've done with our money in the last 6 years. We've helped this one, that one, and so on. And when he told that to Eliyahu Navi, he said, Hashem has seen your kindness and it's good. And he added, good became even greater. Whatever blessings they had, the amount of money and so on was even more. They had even greater wealth. But he used the pasuk. He said, "V'haya ma'aseh tzedakah shalom," that the action of tzedakah, charity, is peace. In this particular instance, he was working in harmony with his wife. She said, "Do it this way." He did it that way. They were working together, and not only do they have the wealth and be able to retain it, they're able to help tremendous amounts of people and have that increase. Now, our question is, how do you do this? People, by definition, are individual. Okay, every person is created differently. Everyone has their unique qualities, their gifts, their strengths. We're different than others, and perhaps that's why we have certain stubbornnesses that come with it, and just the way we are. Okay, there's a bracha that you say when you see a group of over 600,000 people in one area. It's called Chacham Harazim. You're praising God's wisdom. Why? Because no two people in these 600,000 have the same makeup in their mind. They, just like their faces don't look the same, our sages tell us, similarly their minds are not the same. Everyone has different opinions. They're similar people. Many people could get along, but we're not the same. No two people are exactly the same. So how do you have this harmony, get along, don't get rid of differences, blend them together? It's all beautiful. But how do you do it? Okay, so we see what peace is. Again, how do you get to that peace? We're so different. You can't just say, oh, get along. We can get along, but we're not really peaceful. Let's take the angel. The angel says fire is the way. And the other angel says, no, snow is the way. These are opposite attitudes to life and opposite strategies. And we're saying, keep your way, but have peace, get along. It's not an easy thing. We are in the days of Sphira now, in counting, which number one, it's about the students of Rabbi Akiva. We have to get along and have respect for one another despite differences. But it's not going to answer how we have that peace. It's also a time to refine ourselves and work on our midas and become better in all aspects of our life. But when you learn about the spheres, you find, again, many differences. There's a kind way of behavior, and there's a strict way, almost like a disciplinary way, and they're different. There's a story that the previous Rebbe brings with a very special Melamed by the name of Reb Nissen. And this Melamed, this teacher, school teacher, had the school in his house. He had a class of young kids, probably 7, 8 years old, that he would study with. He would teach them Aleph Beis, teach them basics of Chumash. And it was very nice and successful. He was a great teacher. But he failed, or so it seemed, with his son. He had a son, Yitzchak Shaul was his name. And this son was a wild kid. His father would learn with the students in his living room. And he was outside in the yard with the little chickens and whatever other animals that were running around. And he would torment them. He would chase these little animals and run after them and throw stones at them. And at some point, it really got out of hand. And the father took the child into his house and they gave him a spanking. Okay, it's probably not so popular today for good reasons, but he gave him a spanking. And he warned him that I don't want you to behave this way, and I'm doing this, I'm hitting you because I want you to feel the kind of pain that you're inflicting on animals. And he explained to him the sensitivity you have to have for animals, and just because you're stronger and quicker than these little animals, you still have to be kind, and so on. Fine, he went back out to the yard. He comes back in a few minutes later, and he sees his father at the table weeping. He's crying. He doesn't understand. He gave me a spanking. I should be crying. He's crying. But it really had a major impact on him, and it caused him to change his behavior, because he noticed that although his father gave him a spanking, he's the one that's in pain. It bothers him that he had to do that. What he saw was two opposites at play here. He saw chesed, kindness, or better yet, rachamim, compassion, and he saw severity, strictness. Okay. On the one hand, the father spanked him. He hit him. He punished him. But he's not doing it, I'm so angry at you, I'm going to get you. He's doing it with compassion because he wants to help the child. And it bothers him that he's not behaving in the right way. There's something called tif-eres, which means blending together. When you have an attitude that tells you that although I have one way, you have another way, we don't want to get rid of your way nor my way. We want to find a way to do both of these together, which will be better than each one on its own. Okay, let's speak clearly. When you have chesed, when you have kindness, which was Avram Avinu's mode, Avram Avinu was a very kind person, extremely hospitable. His son was Yitzchak. He was Gvura. He was very disciplined, very strict. He did what he was supposed to in a very particular way, and he's not described or characterized as kindness. It's not him. He also had kindness to him, but that wasn't his strength. Now, Avram had two sons, right? He had more, but two sons that we're talking about today. Yitzchak and Ishmael. Okay? And one was a great tzaddik, and one was a rasha. Okay? Yitzchak, a wicked person. Yitzchak had two sons, two twins, Yaakov and Esav. Yaakov was a tzaddik, and Esav was not. Yaakov Avinu had 12 sons. Who was good? They were all tzaddikim. Mitosei shlema. They were complete. And our sages tell us the reason why he had that gift, and specifically his children had it, is because he wasn't just chesed. He wasn't characterized as gevura. He was tif-eres. Yaakov Avinu had the blend of both together. When you encounter a conflict or an opposing opinion, you could either argue with it, try to get rid of it, or try to give in and just go their way, or you could find a way to blend the two. And blending, again, is very important to underscore. You're not shunning or diminishing your way. You're saying like that child, like that father was doing discipline to his child with tremendous kindness. And it was felt because he had both together. He had the harmony of the kindness and of the discipline. That's key to Shalom. Esa Shalom b'mreim of Hashem does brings peace upon high. He's bringing both of these together. He's bringing the fire and the water, and when they work together, that's where you have peace, and peace in the proper way. Let's do a few examples of this in life. When it comes to learning, it says that Reish Lakish, when he left the yeshiva, he passed away or whatever it was, Rabbi Yochanan had a very difficult time learning. He couldn't even be comforted on the fact that his study partner Reish Lakish was gone. And he said, why? Why did Reish Lakish have why did Rabbi Yochanan have such a difficult time when Reish Lakish left? Because every single thing that Rabbi Yochanan taught, Reish Lakish, his study partner, asked 24 questions on this. Imagine you said something, and the person listening to you disputed it 24 ways. But he loved it because he was able to understand deeper. He was able to counter it. He was able to come to a much greater level of understanding than without those questions. He didn't look at him and say, "Why are you arguing with me?" He couldn't get over the fact when he was gone. Literally, he couldn't be comforted. Right? Because when someone comes to you with an opposing opinion, instead of saying you're wrong, try to understand it. Maybe you could blend your way and his way. Maybe you'll become smarter and more enlightened as a result of it. We're not saying you have to give away your opinion if you're right. Everyone thinks they're right? But it's shalom, peace, harmony.
You use the term to go along.
The one where you
Tiferes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Education. We brought the example of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. That's right. Very good. Tiferes, if you say this is the sphere that we're in now. But the idea is regarding education. Why was Yaakov so successful? Because he had that balance the whole time. He didn't have a hard time the way Avram did to get rid of Yishmael. Avram didn't want to send Yishmael away, even though he was a bad influence on Yitzchak. Till Hashem said, listen to Sarah. She says to get rid of him. They chased him away, then he came back. But the idea here is that Yaakov had Tiferes. He had that blend, he had that harmony, and therefore he had Mitasei Shlema. When it comes to education, you can't take a hard line, you can't take just the giving. You have to have a proper balance. You have to know when to be kind. You have to know when to be disciplined. Your discipline has to be with kindness, and your kindness and your giving has to be measured, has to be calculated, has to have some thought in mind. And Thirdly, when it comes to relationships, specifically spousal, husband and wife relationships, it says a wife is ezer kinegdoi, right? A helper against this person or opposite this person. And there's a beautiful word that says like this: she is a ezer by being negdoi. Okay, ezer means a helper, assistant, partner, and negdoi means opposite, right? Standing opposite you. How is she your ezer? How is she being your companion? By being opposite you. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to have a conflict in order to be a help, but it gives a perspective that when you're in a relationship, and there are two opposites, because men and women are different by nature, okay? By the opposites being there, that creates the ezer. If you surround yourself with people that are exactly like you, think like you, talk like you, have the same opinions in all areas, that's not true help. But it's an attitude. It's when we look at it and we say, oh, I know it's opposite from me, I know it's different, but I'm going to benefit from that difference. Not because I'm going to convince them and not because they're going to convince me. We're not looking for that. Sometimes that's the case. But we're going to find a middle way of doing this, where each person brings their blessing, their gift, their contribution to this relationship. Again, peace is not uniting by blending. It's uniting by highlighting the individual qualities and bringing them together. Right? There's a word that says, when the end of Isa Shalom, we say, after Shemona Esther, we say, Isa Shalom B'Mreimov, we take 3 steps backwards. Why do you take 3 steps backwards when you before you say Isa Shalom when it comes to peace? So they say that if you really want to have peace, you got to sometimes take 3 steps back. Be objective for a moment. Listen to someone else's approach. See how you can incorporate it if you can. See how you could add to it or they could add to you. But if you're in it, it's very hard to do so. So you walk back 3 steps. That's when you have the shalom. So why is shalom so important? Because all the other blessings that you have, if you can't figure out a way to have harmony, harmony is blending together the opposites, finding a way how we each bring something to the table. And even when we have to have 2 different approaches within ourselves, we blend them together and we have that balance. That's, as the Rambam tells us, is the golden middle. Not extreme in this direction, not extreme in that direction. Thank you all for joining and have a peaceful day.
In the